We are back with another episode of the Market Millennials. I am here with my former rival, Aviv. I'm kidding. We used to work at like competing companies, but now he's the CRO CMO of DataRails, and we're going to talk how to build a predictable revenue engine because he's been doing that at multiple of his roles. But I'll let Aviv give his background, how he got into marketing, how he's grown in his career, and then we'll get into the podcast. But welcome to the podcast, Aviv.
Awesome. Great to be here. Thanks, Daniel.
I'll let you start off. And how did you get into marketing and in the revenue go-to-market space?
Wow. Yeah, it's been a while. Like I've been in marketing like for many years now. I actually started in politics, being a director of communications for a politician, and been working in different tech companies ever since. After being at IBM for many years, I actually moved to the startup world. And at my previous startup, is the one you mentioned, the one that we were competing against. Like I worked for a small startup called Workies that was competing against the mighty Service Titan. And it was an amazing ride over there. I worked there for a couple of years in the field service management space. And then about 4.5 years ago now, I was approached by the co-founder of DataRails. I looked him up. He seemed like a interesting guy. Already built $1 billion startup, which is WalkMe, that got sold to SAP. So I decided to move to DataRails, and the growth ever since was amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like it's growing like a weed from the outside perspective. So that's amazing. And you seem to be doing this a lot in your career. But I want to ask you, a lot of people say the phrase predictable revenue engine. But a lot of teams aren't actually building a predictable revenue engine. So what's your equation you start with when you are given a revenue target?
Yeah. So I started by the background, continuing with my story to explain like how we got into that kind of equation. So when I joined, the company was really very early phase. It's a couple of million in ARR, and they told me try to build marketing. It was just outbound back then, and I started building some paid media efforts, some brand efforts, and with time we started to understand like how this machine is operating. So moving forward, a few years later, I was able to build like a system where I can know the target the CEO or CFO gives me in terms of how much revenue we need to generate. And I can go back in a waterfall model and say, okay, this is the marketing budget I need. This is how many meetings we're going to generate, how many opportunities are going to come in, and how much revenue eventually is going to come in based on that. And that's one of the reasons where what is it, like 2.5 years ago, they also asked me to take over sales, just because like everything was so inbound led, and the salespeople, the way we built this machine, weren't even prospecting. We just filled their calendars with meetings, and their goal was what? Close them and make them deals.
Okay, so let's reverse engineer the process now, because that's a good background of you get a revenue number, and now you have to like reverse engineer to get exactly the opportunities, exactly book meetings, exactly lead target. But what if say I gave you the same a $20 million ARR goal? What are the first 5 numbers you need before you even think about starting running a strategy or campaign?
Okay, so what I'll need to know is first of all the cost per meeting. So I know it based after doing it for many years in my industry. I know how much budget I need to spend in paid media activities in order to generate that. It's important to mention we're selling to CFOs. I didn't mention, but I work for DataRails. We sell to the office of the CFO and SMB and mid-market, like an FP&A solution. So with time, I was able to understand, the cost per meeting. Of course, the more we scale, the more the cost goes. So I need to know like the cost per meeting. Based on that, I know how much meetings I can generate. Then I know the conversion rate from meeting to opportunity, which means, from the meeting that the account executive took, what's the percentage rate that they will make it an opportunity and work that deal. And then the conversion rate from opportunity to closed one. In addition to all that, like I mentioned, we are building this whole machine based on it. So I also hire account executives based on how many meetings we have. So for example, if I have 2,000 meetings a quarter, if that's my target in order to reach the revenue target, I know, and I want to create, for example, 100 meetings per rep. So I need like 20 reps. So based on that, it's not only on what we do in marketing, but also how we hire our account executives.
And is it, when you calculating, let's say, the close rate back to the opportunity, is it blended along like ramping reps and regular reps, or is it a ramping rep close rate, a regular close rate, or is there also different close rates per like different sections? Like, because you had to like work backwards from that number to get the opportunity number.
Yeah, you're right.
So,
Like I kind of simplified it, but we also have like
yeah.
different tier systems for the leads. That's also a big change we did a few years ago. It's not about fairness. We want the best leads to go to the best reps, and also, they have different quotas. So of course, like we have different conversion rates per tier level and per the account executive, and also per geo. We work in North America and in EMEA. We know the different numbers for each one of these.
And where do you think, when you go into these orgs, where do you think most teams mess up the equation? Like, where does the mess usually come from? You see?
Yeah, I think a lot of companies, when they want to generate more revenue, so they just hire more AEs and say, okay, this is the quota for AEs, and we'll just hire more AEs and we'll get there. But they're not thinking about the pipeline. And again, I could speak based on my experience in the SMB mid-market space. I know it might be different in an enterprise. I believe that account executives are best utilized if they don't need to prospect themselves. I'd rather generate the pipeline for them. I think prospecting today is very difficult, especially if you want to do it cold, outbound. So I think in other companies, they would just hire the AEs without thinking first about the pipeline. I would not hire more AEs until I know I have the correct pipeline to support them. And also different than other companies, I do not want my AEs to prospect at all. I don't think it's like a vanity cool metric, for them to mention and just show their sales prowess by, being able to cold outbound. Like I'm thinking about more like the Henry Ford factory, like every part of the machine needs to do their role. Marketing SDRs need to generate the meetings, and the sales team needs to know how to close them.
So also, I want to like work backwards from the meeting book target to like getting the lead. So how are you, like, what's like the media mix look like when you're looking at that? Are you putting a lot on Meta, Google, or is it event budget? Like, how are you separating that media mix up top?
Yeah, so I'll tell you like what works for us. Like a big part of it is especially digital. I think a lot of people would assume that because we're selling to CFOs, we're just focusing on Google and on LinkedIn. But you'd be surprised to hear about almost a third of our spend is also on Facebook, which means Facebook and Instagram. We have ads that work there that are funny and engaging and different. People might be surprised, but CFOs also have a sense of humor. And you want to engage with them. You want to do something, cool and interesting in where they are. And a lot of them are still in Facebook or Instagram. We even have like different campaigns in TikTok, and we saw deals coming in from TikTok. Again, not something obvious you would think would happen with CFOs. And that's, our main channels. Of course, we do like a few other smaller ones, but that's like the expertise that we built in-house.
You probably have like the bread and butter channels, like Meta's bringing in a third of the budget and stuff like that. So when deciding let's go to TikTok or something like that, do you care about like the blended CAC number you're trying to hit, or like is there a certain CAC number per channel that you're trying to hit as well?
Yeah, I think it's like whatever works. So you see like things are changing quarter to quarter. So we have an amazing like user acquisition team. So, in one quarter, they might, increase Facebook ads or we call it Meta ads, or then decrease Google, or in the next quarter it could be something different. But yeah, it all comes down to, especially like the head of the user acquisition team, they have to think about the cost of acquisition, as you mentioned, and see how many meetings they can generate with their budget and try to maximize it. Of course, there's like nuance here in terms of, the quality of the lead, like I mentioned, the tier 1 versus a tier 2 and so forth. But usually their targets are based on meetings and opportunities.
And for For that tier 1, tier 2, is there like a is it based on form field fill out? Is there like an AI grading system? Is it an intent system? Like, what is the system like built to like get
Yeah,
the
it's
tier?
no, it's a good question. Like, so when we started, it was very basic based on, like
Mm.
company size or revenue or title. But now we're like embedding AI more, and we're even researching, the different leads coming in and giving them a different tier. We even create like more tiers based on it. So, there's so much you can do with AI now, and it's really helping us. And now we're like learning about these new tiers and the conversion rates, like we mentioned before, like and how they're impacting. But yeah, it's exciting times.
How I know this is a question you probably are getting a lot internally, but also like the question that the market wants to know too. But how two this is a two kind of fold question. How are besides lead scoring, how are you embedding AI into the workflow to help, let's say, SDRs, marketing, sales? And then the secondary question is, which we can get to second, is like, are you looking into like GEO, AEO? Like, how are you deciding like how what to spend on to get to um be seen in on these LLMs and things like that?
Um, yeah, so to start with your first question, so based on the fields people are updating, we can have AI learn with time what's better and what's worse, and also like enrich it with things that you can find online. We even use, for example, with AI a spam filter to make sure we don't go a lot of spam meetings that fill the calendars of the account executives. I'll give you an example. Let's say like you sign up and it says like I don't know like Daniel.M's at a company. It double checks like in LinkedIn if there is a Daniel I'm working at that company, and it creates this kind of ranking system to see what makes sense, what doesn't. Even like when the SDRs go on calls, for example, we have them qualify meetings and decide on the tier system, but also we have AI double check that. And sometimes if the AI says something different than the SDR, so the SDR manager looks at it and decides, what is like the right ranking and something you need to update, the SDRs or something maybe the AI got wrong. So like there's in every part of the process, like we're using AI to some degree. And I think, we only got started. I think there's so many possibilities in how to scale it and make this whole machine more efficient. And if you go back, to what we mentioned before, it's like you asked me about the numbers. I just want to improve, the cost per meeting, conversion rate for meeting to opportunity. Like every 1% here, 2% there could make like a really huge difference in our profitability. And to your question about like GEOs, of course, like it's a major shift we did in the last year and focusing much more on GEO than just rather SEO. Of course, we're still doing both. And yeah, there's a lot of different tactics that, we're trying to employ to get there, and a lot of different testing that we're doing to see what people are getting within their GEO results. Like I can even share like an anecdote, like the biggest deal we had last year, huge enterprise deal. I looked it up and I wanted to see like how the attribution. So one of the questions we asked in our forum is, "How did you hear about us?" It's an open forum question. It's not like a drop down. So the person wrote ChatGPT. Now it's a CFO of a multi-billion-dollar company. So you know
Well,
you never know.
we before we got on this podcast, we talked about you had to close down your Claude tabs and stuff like that. So all executives are probably using it to do some sort of research, some sort of playing around, some sort of data ingestion. So they're using it to make their lives easier, and catch their mistakes too that they're probably making. So uh, it makes sense, especially because ChatGPT is pretty good at like logical things, which like CFOs have to be very logical. Like you can't mess up numbers when it comes to the CFO. Uh,
Exactly, exactly. It's like everyone is using it. Like we said before, it's like about social media. Like everyone's using it. Same thing with AI. Like I think everyone's experimenting now with like Claude and ChatGPT, and people want to figure it out.
One thing I have to you, I think one of the hardest things is like coming into business and then like doing very well the first year and predicting the next year. So how do you do it? what is the forecasting process you have to make sure that you get that meeting book number right? You get the split between like I need a because obviously you need to get the certain amount of right reps at the right time to hit like those numbers, and then also the split between SDR and like marketing, like generated. Like how do you work back from a year that you did well?
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. It's like I think it's not obvious. Like it seems like, I wish the life was that easy. It's like you put it in an
yeah.
Excel spreadsheet and like everything works out. So you have to update it like every quarter and make some assumptions. But if you like, 3 other quarters last year, we had an amazing year. Like I was right within like a 5% margin, like in each one quarter. The only quarter that we actually like exceeded expectation by 30% because we introduced a new model of like a multi-product solution and new pricing that really made a difference, and I couldn't have expected that. So I think it's like you want to see the results, you want to reiterate, you want to talk with the team, but yeah, I wish it was like exact science, but it isn't. But I think like you trust your judgments of other people on the team, but eventually it's important to mention like when you speak with a CEO or CFO, or especially like the board, that's what they're expecting of you as like a marketing
Mhm.
leader, especially like a CRO. They just like they don't care about the details. For them, it's like, okay, we're gonna this is the target, how much you're gonna spend, uh, and build something that actually is gonna work. They don't care if I spend everything in Google Ads or Facebook or whatever, but they wanna have someone they can trust that would come to them and say, I have a plan. This is how we get there, as opposed to someone that just says, I have no idea. We'll just try
And
crazy
then
stuff.
also, yeah, a lot of marketers make the mistake and start saying, "Yeah, we had a split of this," and they're just like trying to say, like, "Hey, are you hitting the numbers or not?" And I don't care how you hit the numbers. Are you hitting the like? Are you getting your meeting books target? Are you spending the right amount to get there? Is your CAC going up or down? Like, is it efficient or not? Are you profitable or not? Like questions uh, they're asking. They're not asking in the weeds. Your job is to get in the weeds and ask those questions to your team. The board doesn't care and the leadership doesn't care. Uh,
Exactly. Yeah, it might be
yeah.
like a bit biased, especially as like a marketer that became a CRO or a CRO in general. But I I always found it weird going to like a management meeting and I can tell the CEO, oh, I hit my target. I generate X amount of meetings or pipeline. And then the VP sales says, oh, I missed my target. It just doesn't make sense. So when you think about it from the CEO perspective, now he has one person to work with that is both in charge of the revenue growth, but also on the cost of acquisition. So, it's one person to talk to as opposed to like trying to figure out like, a debate of like who's right, who's wrong, if like we missed the target and so forth. So, again, biased, but that's my opinion.
We did this at Service Titan, but I know I wanted to ask the question how you're winning at the CFO. So like you talked a little bit that you're 130 about the 130 revenues coming from or pipeline driven is coming from Meta. I don't know how much is coming from TikTok, but what does that process look like to generate creative, and what does it look like marketing on Facebook versus like marketing on more of like a professional network like LinkedIn? Like what type of creative you creating? What because obviously CFOs have are people and they have a life and they're on Facebook and they're on Instagram and they're scrolling and they're doing those things. So what does that look like to win on those platforms and B2B?
Yeah. So I think you need to throw out everything you heard about B2B before and just understand you have to be creative and different. And that's what we're trying, especially I think as a startup, you have to take big risks. It's the difference if you're marketing and you work for Apple or Samsung, or you're working for a small startup. When you're working for a small startup, no one cares about you. You'll launch a new product, no one's going to stand in line, to buy it. So you have to interrupt people where they are. And let's say they're on Instagram, they're scrolling through their feed, they're seeing, some stuff their friends might be posting, or comedians, or politicians, or other things that they like. You need to have like an amazing ad in order for someone to stop, especially like a CFO. So we have like an amazing in-house team we created. Most of them actually came from B2C, where we are generating dozens of creatives, not sometimes even like 100 every month. and we're just feeding it to the algorithm and trying to see what sticks and what works. We're working with content providers. Sometimes we're filming stuff ourselves in the office. Once in a while, we also, do a small production. We're just testing everything, and you never know what's going to work. Sometimes, there's something you created in an hour with maybe the cost was $50 is going to work for you better than something you produced for $40,000. But for us, we don't care about what's going to work or what strategy. It's just like we want to find something that works, and we're going to put like all of our budget behind that.
Yeah, hearing that the amount of creative you are producing, it sounds very B2C, obviously, because my wife's in e-commerce and they pump out creative like crazy. Like that's their goal is more and more creative, because creative is like the new targeting. It's the new testing ground. It's the new, especially when you have higher volume, like an SMB versus enterprise. It might not work, but when you have high volume, you get that um, audience fatigue and audience when you have the same creative over and over being seen. So you need to get out of that audience fatigue loop. If you by putting you could repeat winners, you can keep the winners on, but you need that loop. And that sounds very B2C. B2B needs to learn a lot from like how e-commerce runs meta.
Exactly. And I think it's like people are forgetting how much other impact it can have. For example, even on our outbound team, we still have outbound, performs well. But you can see that, like, I listened to some of the calls that led to deals in outbound, and you can hear like our outbound is they are talking with someone, and they're like, "Hey, I'm calling here from DataRails," and then you can hear the prospect say, "Oh, I've been seeing your ads all the time."
I
So
love that. That must feel good as a marketing team, like to hear that.
exactly,
You got
and it's
good
like it
air
works. So like we
coverage.
win. Well, go ahead.
No, I just said it's good air coverage. Like your goal to support the SDR team is to create air coverage, so when they call, they know who you are when they pick up the phone.
Exactly. Like you're building your brand. And the way I see it, it's important to mention as a CRO, especially coming from marketing, I'm fine giving few different teams credit. It can be both outbound and marketing. It can be partnership as well. It's not that we need to make a decision on like only one source that led to it. In this case, both outbound and marketing, get the credit. And that's how you build, I think, an efficient machine. Like you want everyone to work together with be aligned and winning together.
Also, I think you said you do things that are pretty creative and funny and humorous, and people also, I think a lot of people forget, or marketers forget, that in B2B that you're competing next to an ad that is for their deodorant, their a handbag. You're not competing against other B2B companies when you are doing that as well, but you're competing with everyday products that these people are buying. So you have to do something to stand out. You can't just be better than B2B. You also have to be better than the e-commerce ads out there to stand out.
Exactly, exactly. You're competing with everything. Like I'll give you like three different examples of stuff we did in marketing just this past year.
Mhm.
One, we introduced a new mascot. So we have a mascot, which is a panda. If you think about it, we sell to FP&A, so it's F Panda. So we have like a panda as our main mascot, and he appears in our ads and content. Super geeky, making Excel jokes and stuff like that. The second thing is like we sponsored the Excel World Cup in Vegas, and we had like many participants actually wear like DataRails shirts. Even one of the people we sponsored, let's call it the athletes that we sponsored, actually won the competition. So we got a lot of coverage, based on that. And even like talking about the place that you might think is the least B2B focused, we did like this Sora video where you have Bob Ross, the famous painter from the past, actually use his paintbrush on Excel and talk about it with Sora, like 8-second clip. We posted it on TikTok of all places. We had more than 3 million impressions, thousands of likes, hundreds of comments. We even got comments from the official Microsoft account. So yeah, some fun stuff.
Yeah, I think, I mean, it comes down to what you say too, is you deeply are knowing what CFOs are in Excel all day. So you need to be where Excel is. You can poke jokes of like number jokes and Bob Ross jokes and all this stuff of same like every industry, if you could find those little pain points and poke to the pain points of those people, you can get a good reaction. And the goal of content usually in my eyes is to get it shared in the org, get a screenshot, get it in that Slack channel. um, so if you create something great like that Bob Ross XL, I bet it was shared in multiple channels where finance teams, FP&A teams are looking, laughing, and they're like, "Oh, DataRails did this funny." They have a humor. They're not just like this boring B2B company that I'm gonna work with.
Exactly. And I think it also makes a differentiation even during the sales process. Like you want to be a brand that's likable and personal. Personable. Just once you have like this kind of character and people feel like they know you, I think it's going to be also easier to make a decision to buy from you. It's not this random brand that cold called me and I never heard about them at all. So yeah.
What does that look? Question: what does it look like for like how much of the budget percentage wise do you put into like testing like new bets versus like tried and true channels? Like what is like obviously the Excel tournament might have not did something, but it did something great and probably drove some good pipeline. But what are those like big bet budget look like versus tried and true budget look like?
Yeah, so it's like 5 to 10% of the budget. So I mentioned like we had some success like in TikTok, but we tried other things that didn't work. We tried Spotify, we tried Reddit, we Twitter, X, now how is it called? But like we're trying things like all the time, and like I want to encourage my marketing team to experiment and try new things. Um, you want to also work, I think, as a marketer in an environment that encourages you to take big risks, and it's completely fine if it failed. Because that's the only way you'll be able to grow and discover new things is if, you take these like bold bets rather than just, do whatever is obvious and, keep going at it even if it stops working.
Yeah, you don't want to be that marketing team who like knows they're not going to get fired because they bought IBM back in the day. Like they just do the safe thing because it's logical. It's and a lot of logic keeps people's jobs for a little bit, but it doesn't help them scale. Like the logical answer is to buy this tool or do this thing, but sometimes you need to like it might not be logical to spend that much on meta in B2B, but do the not logical thing, try it. If it works, keep going, and take those bets, like you said.
Yeah, it's like you have to take, those big bets because exactly like you mentioned, you can play it safe. So maybe you'll survive a few more quarters, but at the end of the day, you're going to lose your job because you aren't going to make remarkable marketing. You aren't going to build great pipelines. So you'd rather take those big risks and try to do something amazing. First of all, it's more fun, but also I think it's better also for your career to see some of the best, even B2B companies out there had amazing marketing over the years. And if someone is listening to this podcast and saying, oh, but I can't do it because my CEO won't allow it, so quit. No, there are more companies out there.
Yeah, exactly. As you don't have to stay at the same company, and you don't, and not every CEO is going to get marketing, and that's okay. And you want to be in a place where the CEO and founders get marketing and know it works and supports marketing as a revenue driving, not a cost center in the business.
Exactly. I think it's so important for you to frame that way, that it's like a profit center, that it's not like you're spending money and maybe one day it's going to help build the brand. You want to show immediate results. And I can share that when I started in my second week of the job, I wanted to do a funny meme on LinkedIn. I took the inspiration from, what Gang was doing on LinkedIn. So I did this meme, and after a few weeks, and the CEO came to me, said they had a board meeting, and one of the board members was asking, why you're doing these ridiculous things, like you're selling to CFOs or serious people. And I told the CEO, trust me, it's going to work with time. And luckily for me, he trusted me. And with time, we were able to do more and more better creative with more creative people than myself, on the team doing amazing things there on LinkedIn and other channels. But you have to have the CEO trust you and be willing to take risks.
Yeah, you don't want to be that on the marketing. I've been on the marketing team where I was even like posting stuff and people were worried, like more. I was getting smacked from like a board member seeing that I was posting a meme on. It's just ridiculous. You don't want to be on that team where you're always having this like shadow of like take this down. We don't want you to post this. Don't do this type of marketing. Just play it safe. It's the you like you said again, going back, I'm repeating myself, but quit. But I want to ask you if a CMO or leaders listening and wants to prove that marketing is a revenue driver, like you said, in the next 90 days, what would you tell them to start doing Monday morning?
Yeah, so I think they have to start with things that show revenue or build pipeline. When I started, I hired three different agencies: one for Facebook, one for LinkedIn, one for Google, because I wanted them to compete. And while I was also trying to build an inbound team, because I knew that once I show results, it's going to be much easier building a team. And I'm sure a lot of people there are thinking, oh, I can't really do this. I want to focus on the brand and all that. So I'm all for focusing on the brand. When I started, we also started build a podcast that 4.5 years later, we have more than 600,000 downloads. We started building this LinkedIn content I mentioned, but I would never be able to get to this kind of growth if I wouldn't have invested in paid media ads, growth that generated results on the spot. Because you have to balance, the short-term goals with the long-term goals. So especially if you speak with you're a CEO, make sure first of all you're hitting your target, and with the extra money you have, do some brand stuff. And I think it's very like ever since I became a CRO, I learned about the sales side. It's exactly like for a head of sales to hire an account executive in a quarter. Let's say you're in Q1. That account executive is not going to help you at all getting to your results in Q1. You're going to have to hire them, train them. Maybe they're going to help you by Q3, but you have to invest in it. The same thing goes with marketing. You have to invest in your brand, but it's not an excuse to not hit your targets this quarter.
Yeah, I think it's a great way to, because a lot of leaders get the sales motion more than they get the market motion, and the sales motion is more predictable. So framing it marketing as that, I mean, brand as that sales rep that you have to train it, you have to show them the ropes, show them how to prospect, then give them the accounts, and then eventually, but you also have to have had those reps, those quota hitting reps and enough quota fulfilled to make sure that that you're hitting quota as well while you're hiring and scaling up that rep. So it's exactly what you were saying. That's a way better way to phrase it to someone who might not get how marketing works or what brand is, because a lot of people think brand is just fluffy logos and colors and like pretty stuff.
Yeah,
So
exactly. You have to think about that, and again, like I think also a lot of marketing leaders fail that, like they say, okay, I invest in brand, but the fact you're investing in brand doesn't mean you're doing a good job. Like for example, if I would do like a brand campaign that's not focused on demo requests, which again most of my focus is demo requests, I would want to see if we spent money there that I'm getting more likes or comments or shares, that people are interacting with it. And we're going to mention the name of a specific brand I saw that you started a huge campaign, and I looked at one of their videos on YouTube, and you can see 1 million views. So probably they promoted the heck out of it, but it had like 2 likes. Like if you're doing a brand video and it has 1 million views because you spent a lot and you get like 2 likes and no comments, maybe it wasn't the best brand video.
yeah, I mean, social media will give you signals, what are good, and that's why likes, shares, comments. If they do, if those signals are there, they probably that you organically. Like I always say, like test something for organically before you put spend behind it. If you're going to do a brand campaign, like test organically, see if it actually gets likes and shares organically before you start blowing budget on putting money behind it. It's not smart at all.
Yeah, I love
Uh,
that. Like for me, the way also I built the team is I have my brand and content organization and the growth organization. So growth is focused on generating this amount of meetings and opportunities. Well, brand just in charge of doing like cool stuff. I don't want them to focus even on, these kind of metrics. That said, every now and then, if there is something that we did in the brand team that is amazing and cool, and all of a sudden, like I mentioned a few of these examples before, we got a lot of likes and comments and shares organically, just like you said. Now I'm going to go to the growth team and say, you see, this was super successful. Let's put maybe some money behind it. It's probably going to create like more reaction with our audience, and it usually works.
Yeah, I feel like so much paid media is wasted because people aren't testing on organic first and testing ideas on organic, because organic gives you free signal of, hey, directionally this is a good piece of content or bad, or this is a good messaging or bad, or my audience is resonating or not with this type of creative or messaging or format. And once you've seen that, you could start just tweaking it and make it a little bit better for paid media or a little bit better for TikTok. But once you've validated the idea through organic, you could put a lot more paid against it. And then you're not, because I always say to people that, like, impression, you pay a paid impression doesn't mean a paid attention. Uh,
Yes.
you could pay to get something in someone's feed. It doesn't mean they're paying attention to that, like, at all. So it's, you want to put it in the feed so people pay attention and pay more and more, because the benefit of paid media is guaranteed distribution to your audience. Like, what organic is not guaranteed distribution to your audience. So um, that's why you put money behind it, because you want that guaranteed distribution.
Yeah, and I think that's also what's so exciting about marketing today, as opposed to, let's say, the Don Draper days or
Yeah.
40 years ago. Like, you can test stuff and get reactions organically. It's not that, you work on one campaign for 3 months, you sit in an office, come up with this amazing ad. You can test a lot of different things and see the results, and just, like you said, double down on, what actually works.
Yeah, and the way, I mean, they even tested back in the day on, like, A/B testing, like, mailers. I mean, that took longer because you had to, like, send out mailers. It took a week, and then you got to get the response back, but they still were A/B testing creative on mailers and seeing if it worked or not, that way. But lastly, I wanna ask you, what is a marketing hill you would die on?
Um, Marketing has to generate revenue. If it doesn't generate revenue, again, you're a cost center, you want to be a profit center.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing more to say. That I also say that, like, you wanna see marketing as an investment, and when you put in your money in the stock market, your own personal money, you're not trying to get negative return on your money. Like, it's the same with marketing. You're trying to get a positive return on whatever you're trying to invest to build the business, and that marketing budget is an investment in growth of the business. So you have to think of it like that, and think that I'm trying to grow that portfolio. It's not, and it compounds like a portfolio if you do it right with brand and good creative and stuff like that. Uh, so
Yeah. I think it's like, I think the best situation, which is a hard one to get to, is like get the CFO to come to you and say, you should invest more. Like, because, they see the results. So I think that's the situation you want to be in. Like, I mentioned with the stock market, like that the company or board would want to have you invest.
the best situation you can have in as a marketing team is you're blowing budget out the you're blowing targets so far out that month that people say keep spending because we need to hit goals. Like, your budget just increased in that quarter because you're overperforming. That's the best feeling as a marketer. Just like, come on, let's put more fire on it because it's working.
Yeah, and that will allow you to do crazy ideas, like telling them now I want to have a panda mascot. once you once you're there, you can go wild with your ideas, but first you have to prove that you generate revenue.
And lastly, where can people find you and what you're doing and all that good stuff?
Yeah, follow me on LinkedIn. Feel free to DM me. I'm the only Aviv Canaani on LinkedIn, so happy to connect.
Look at you. You have like perfect SEO now. Like people just could find you. I have to compete against all these Daniel Murrays in the world. It's a hard um, battle out there.
At least you know how to pronounce your name. It's like for me, it's harder.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Dan.